With the rise of non-linear video games that sought to give players more options to craft stories the way they wanted to, making choices became more of a fixture. And with the prevalence of those choices, inevitably some of them weren't so easy to make. This is especially the case where a video game decision gives you a moral dilemma to address, forcing you to weigh up different consequences, particularly where the lives of those you care about or your success in the rest of the game hangs in the balance. So if you've come to this list in the hopes that you'll be comforted by being in the majority, you may have arrived at the right place. Of course, we will be spoiling a bunch of major decisions in the following games, so be warned. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are the 9 toughest video game moral choices and what you picked. Number 9. Bay vs. Bay. Life is Strange. Life is Strange is a fantastic adventure that bundles up extraordinarily likable characters, timey-wimey manipulation that impacts the story and game mechanics in genuinely interesting and meaningful ways, and of course, oodles of player choice. That of course means half the things that work out well or work out poorly in the game's 5-episode run are mostly your fault. Then again, there's one decision right down the end of the game that divided players almost right down the middle. This choice comes at the beginning of the final episode, when the revelation comes about for protagonist Max that in saving her best friend Chloe early on in the game, she's caused a wild supernatural storm that's set to demolish her hometown of Arcadia Bay. While you had no say in saving Chloe that first time, you're now given a choice. Sacrifice your bay, that's before anyone else, so you don't have to look it up on Urban Dictionary, or sacrifice the bay. Now let's be clear, we love Chloe, but Arcadia Bay's destruction doesn't just spell the end for the geography of the town, but also the lives of every person in the town, including friends and family that you've grown close to over the course of the game. Ultimately, according to the official game stats that were last updated last month, 48% of you decided to sacrifice Arcadia Bay, and 52% of you decided to sacrifice Chloe. Personally, I chose to sacrifice Chloe for the lives of the many and still feel crap about it, so I won't be taking any questions at this time, but the fact that this decision was so split speaks to how much Chloe resonated with players. Number 8. Spare or Kill. Ghost of Tsushima. Another endgame choice that plagued players came at the end of Ghost of Tsushima. The epic narrative comes to a head in your confrontation with your uncle, Lord Shimura. Throughout the game, Jin has been grappling with the concepts of honor and the samurai code, and found himself at odds with Shimura time and time again. In the end, you enter a duel with Shimura, and once you've bested him, you're given a choice. Give him the honorable way out and grant him death, or be dishonorable and spare his life. According to a poll on Reset Era, 58.9% of you decided to spare Shimura once you defeated him, while 41.1% opted to kill him, thereby staying in line with the samurai code. Those who decided to deny Shimura's request for an honorable death say they did so to round out Jin's story of fully becoming the ghost, and rejecting the code and the old ways. Similarly, a bunch of players were fed up with Shimura's hypocrisy and unwilling to compromise Jin's growth to satisfy his uncle's preference. Then again, some people thought that Jin would want to honor his uncle's wishes regardless of where he'd personally progressed, so that filled out the other half. Number 7. Revolution or Demonstration. Detroit Become Human. To call Detroit Become Human divisive is understating it, but there are more than a handful of really impactful narrative moments in here, which makes sense, this is a Quantic Dream game after all. Told through the perspective of multiple protagonists, the narrative paints a picture of a world grappling with their relationship with androids, the rights of the androids themselves, and the ramifications on a micro and macro level. We're very much talking about the macro ramifications here as you step into the shoes of android Marcus, who has a decision to make. You either run a peaceful protest trying to campaign for your rights as androids, or you decide to violently turn on the city who's been treating you badly the entire game. In the end, almost every player ended up in a situation where they needed to choose between one or the other. Ultimately, 52% of people had Marcus lead a peaceful protest for his people, while 39% chose the route of a violent demonstration. Many players reported agonizing over this one, as while they wanted to peacefully protest to show the humans the androids posed no threat, many players believed pacifism would be fruitless. Though the peaceful demonstration proved to be the most popular option, players who chose the path of revolution reported feeling justified in their actions, having watched androids be dehumanized, shot down, maimed, and murdered for the entire game. Of course, there are consequences no matter what you choose, but in a game riddled with extraordinarily tricky choices, this one was absolutely up there. Number 6. Vault 34, Fallout New Vegas. Fan favorite entry in the post-apocalyptic masterpiece of a series that is Fallout, New Vegas is no stranger to propping up some seriously difficult moral dilemmas that players will need to decide upon. One such dilemma comes in the quest Hard Luck Blues, where you're given the choice to decide between saving some very unlucky vault dwellers or the food source for all of New Vegas. You see, Vault 34 is home to a faulty nuclear reactor that's leaking radiation into the earth and damaging nearby NCR crops. Naturally, you'd think to simply address the leak by shutting off the reactor. But of course, in the wasteland, nothing is that simple. As it happens, the vault is home to a handful of survivors who are relying on the reactor to run their generator, without which they would starve. Adding to the issue is that these survivors are trapped in an inaccessible part of the vault, so you're unable to simply get them out. You're left with the choice to save the NCR crops by disabling the reactor, or reroute the power to save the survivors, but doom the crops in the process. According to a poll on the Fallout New Vegas subreddit, 56% of you decided to save the crops, and 44% of you decided to save the survivors. Number 5. Kill the drug dealer, Heavy Rain. Another Quantic Dream game riddled with impossible choices to make, many of which are designed to challenge your morals and priorities, is Heavy Rain. Heavy Rain puts you in the impossible situation in the Trial of the Shark, one of a number of trials protagonist Ethan has been tasked to complete if he is to have any hope of rescuing his kidnapped son Sean from a deranged killer. The shark requires Ethan to kill Brad Silver, a drug dealer, at which point he'll receive another piece of the puzzle that will lead him to Sean. By this point, your trials have cost you skin and even a finger, but you haven't been tasked with taking a life. When Silver tells you he's also a father, things get even more complicated. Whether or not you decide to pull the trigger will probably depend on how many clues you've gathered so far, and as the game itself continually asks you, how far you're willing to go to save Sean. Allowing for double-ups from players who earned both trophies, it appears the majority of players decided they would rather kill Brad in the hopes of learning more about their son's location. While 70,840 reported obtaining the I'm Not a Killer trophy on TrueTrophies.com, 80,800 players achieved the I'm a Killer trophy. Number 4. Heads or Tails, Wasteland 3. If you're the kind of gamer who hates a lose-lose scenario when it comes to video game quests, then you're going to have a tough time with this particular side quest in Wasteland 3. While moseying about the overworld map of Colorado, a bad dude gives your radio a ring to tell you he's holding a civilian homestead at gunpoint. No big problem, you think to yourself, you'll just head right on over and sort it out. On your way, however, you get another person radioing in. Once you're done being impressed over how popular you are today, you'll find yourself in a sticky situation, as this second call is to inform you a Arapaho caravan carrying power armor is in trouble, and you need to get over there and defend it. Stat. Now, it's not uncommon in an RPG for many side quests to require your attention at the same time, but in this particular instance, you only have time to do one. Head over to save the homestead like the hero I know you are, and the power armor is lost and taken by the mutants you're supposed to be fighting. Go secure the power armor and you'll end up sacrificing the homestead, resulting in a bloody end for the family and children inside. According to TrueSteamAchievements.com, this particular moral quandary was especially tight. Of the 77% of tracked gamers who completed the encounter, 38% of players reported they chose to save the family, while 39% abandoned the family in order to retrieve the power armor. Number 3. Shooting a Friend, The Walking Dead Season 2. You'd be hard-pressed to identify a video game series that gives you more absolutely traumatizing decisions to make than The Walking Dead by Telltale. From figuring out who to trust, who to save, how to help protagonist Lee raise his ward Clementine in the first season, to leading Clementine to make the best decisions she can as the series wears on. The zombie apocalypse is a choice-riddled nightmare for everybody. While we're spoiled for choice on brutal moral choices that you'll be posed with, I've gone with one I replayed approximately 7 times trying to figure out which had the least bad outcome. And it seems I wasn't the only one, because loads of people seem to have struggled with the decision of whether or not to shoot your old friend Kenny when he and your new friend Jane come into a lethal altercation at the end of the 2nd season. The official statistics say 50.9% of players decided to shoot Kenny, while 49.1% decided not to. This final decision is exacerbated by your desire to protect Jane, your existing relationship with Kenny, and your concern for the infant AJ, who Jane just informed you has died in order to set Kenny off. Either way, at least one of your companions ends up dead, and you'll have a second choice to make upon realizing AJ is actually alive, whether to go with him on your own or with the surviving companion. Number 2, Odim or OLGIERD, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Another narrative RPG where everything is grim and there are very few happy endings is The Witcher 3. While there's an argument to be made that the hardest choice you'll make in this game is Yen or Triss, in the Hearts of Stone expansion, the ante is considerably upped with 2 enormously complicated characters, Gaunter Odim and Olgierd von Everick. Odim tells Geralt in order to repay him for saving him from certain death by the Ofieri, you must bring him Olgierd, and eventually it'll be up to you whether you want to save him from Odim or not. For the uninitiated, Olgierd is a lovable rogue who has, let's be fair, done a lot of really bad things. Odim cursed him with a heart of stone, he lost the love of his life, you find out he's immortal until his contract with Odim is up. Honestly, there's so many layers to this one, you really have to play it for yourself to find out everything that's going on. Ultimately, you can let Odim claim Olgierd's soul or help Olgierd out. In a GameFAQs.com poll, 26% of people sided with the evil and schemy Odim, and 74% of people sided with the admittedly more likable but also pretty evil and schemy Olgierd. Number 1, Surrender or Cross, Life is Strange 2. Life is Strange 2 might not be as popular as its predecessor, but it's sorely underrated and equally agonizing when it comes to the moral dilemmas you'll often be posed with. You'll spend the game playing as Sean, on the run with your little brother Daniel, and constantly exposed to all kinds of colorful, helpful, and less than kind characters as you journey between Seattle and the Mexican border. Every decision you make along the way not only changes the course of your journey, but also the evolution of Daniel's personality. As a result, ultimately the final choice of the game isn't just up to you, but also up to him, as his inclination to be lawful, reactionary, calm, or aggressive will depend very much on how you've treated him up to this point and how you've acted. That said, in the game's final moments, you'll have the option of whether to try to cross the border or surrender to the police, and you can choose whichever one of those you wish. To a point, like I said, Daniel's gonna have his own opinion. In the end, this one was exceptionally close. 33% of players decided to surrender to the pursuing police, and 32% of players decided to force the roadblock in an attempt to cross the border. In both of those circumstances, Daniel agreed to go ahead with your choice, and in the remaining 35% of instances, players picked one of those options, but Daniel refused to go along with your choice. Then again, you are at the end of the game by this point, so it stands to reason you'd probably try out at least the 2 options that are available to you to see how everything pans out. That's the end of our list. Do let me know down in that comment section which one of these choices gave you the trickiest time, or if there's another one you can think of that I haven't mentioned. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter account where I'm at Jess McDonald, but make sure you stay tuned with us here for plenty more great gaming lists.